to Mind Over Matter, where we unlock the powerful links between body, mind, and soul. Today's guest is Angie M. Gallagher, a clinical exercise psychologist and functional medicine wellness coach who spent over 25 years transforming lives through cardiac and pulmonary rehab and now leads the charge in gut focused health coaching. Angie's mission is crystal clear: the gut is the gateway to true health. Tonight, we'll dive into how nurturing your microbiome can not only improve your physical well being, but can also be a game changer for your mood and mental health. If you've ever wondered how your belly and brain are in constant conversation, this episode is a must listen. Welcome to the show, Angie. It's an honor to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
So, Angie, you say that gut is the gateway to health and disease. Can you break down the science behind how a gut microbe impacts mood and mental health?
Oh, absolutely. So we're learning more and more and more about this every day. The science just continues to show that what is happening in our gut, both from the integrity of our gut wall as well as the balance of bacteria in our microbiome, have a huge impact on our overall health and also very much our mental health. The lining of the gut wall is really imperative because it's what keeps the things that we don't want in our body out and allows the things that we do want in our body in. And when we have a disruption in the gut wall, a lot of things get through, and what we they call breaching the blood-brain barrier, because things are now in circulation. They've been allowed through the gut wall. They have now entered our circulation, and they can circulate to the brain. So the integrity of our gut wall is super crucial for having good mental health. And then our microbiome, where all of those trillions of bacteria live, is where many of our neurotransmitters are made. And so these neurotransmitters, of course, are what help us to have good mental health, have, those feel good chemicals. And when our microbiome is not in good balance, we have what we call dysbiosis. Then we're not able to properly create those important neurotransmitters. And people can suffer from all kinds of mental health issues and have no idea that it is because of what's happening in their gut. And then they get put on these antidepressants, which are just not helping the real issue.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what's one thing most people get wrong about gut health when they first come to you?
The thing they get most wrong about gut health, well, I would say that there's just a very strong, a big misconception when I talk about, your gut health as it pertains to overall health. People immediately think, well, I don't have gut symptoms. I don't have diarrhea or constipation, so it's not my gut. So people assume that gut health is implied because there is an absence of gut related symptoms. But so many symptoms that stem from gut issues, whether it's gut integrity or whether it's microbiome, there's a lot of times the symptoms are not happening in the gut. The symptoms are skin issues. The symptoms are, upper GI stuff. They're brain fog. They're anxiety, depression. So many autoimmune conditions don't have any specific gut related symptoms. So I think that's a really big misconception.
Mm-hmm. It's so fascinating to think that something as simple as gut bacteria could have such a profound effect on how we feel emotionally.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And it's so important, and it's hard to get people to truly understand it because it's having to unlearn so many things that they've learned for so long. I mean, yes, so there's a lot of other contributors to our mental health, obviously, our situations that we're in and external stressors. But if we're coming from a solid foundation of good gut health and brain health, then we're going to be more resilient to those external stressors.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, you have a rich background in cardiac and pulmonary rehab. What led you to pivot and focus so deeply on the gut as your new home base for wellness?
I love that question so much. So I was working in cardiac rehab and I continued to see what we called revolving door patients. They just kept coming back. They had their heart attack or they had their stent, and we put them through cardiac rehab, taught them some things about nutrition and exercise. And but then a year later or so, they'd be back and have another heart attack. And in many cases, I was working with these people who did not have any of the classic risk factors. They weren't overweight, they didn't smoke, they weren't diabetic. Their blood pressure and cholesterol levels were low, and yet they were still back in our cardiac rehab program after their second heart attack, their third heart attack. So that's when I started going down rabbit holes and trying to understand what was going on, because they were just being told they had bad genes. And I just felt like there's more to the story. And so I started discovering the functional medicine model. I started discovering that we can do these deeper dive assessments into their cardiac labs, into inflammatory markers, metabolic health markers. We can look at gut health, and we can understand that the health of their gut has um, a huge role, because when you have inflammation, that becomes systemic. And so we are now learning that cardiovascular disease is an inflammatory disease, and then we can no longer blame it on cholesterol. So once I learned all this, I was actually trying to use some of this information with my patients in cardiac rehab, and I was making recommendations to them to help them improve their metabolic health, improve their gut health. And what ended up happening is I was giving them information that was not in alignment with what the dietitians in the hospital were sharing. And they got really angry and said, "Who is this person that's telling patients to do things opposite of what we're telling them?" I ultimately ended up getting fired. And it was a blessing in disguise. It wasn't even a blessing in disguise. It was a blessing, because it forced me to just launch into my own business where I could really dive into this foundational approach to health, which starts at the gut.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And were there any personal aha moments that really convinced you this was the missing link?
Yeah, absolutely. So personal moments. So I discovered that I had some gut issues related to some things that are in my diet. So there are some common trigger foods, and whether these are trigger foods all across the globe, or whether they're more specific to certain areas and how we grow our food and the things that are sprayed on our crops. But I was eating things that were causing me to have some gut issues. And as a long distance trail runner, you don't want to have gut issues all the time. And so I started taking some things out of my diet. I recognized that my gut was really the reason why I was dealing with a lot of joint inflammation. My sleep was suffering. And once I really started to address the health of my gut and eliminate some certain foods, do some of my own, supplementing to heal my gut, I felt a million times better. All of my issues went away. And so I feel like I definitely have personal testimony to support what I'm sharing with my clients.
That's such an inspiring pivot, especially when you have seen firsthand what doesn't work in conventional care.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just on a mission, because I just saw so many people, and as I'm getting into this age range where many of my peers are now the average age of people that we would see in cardiac rehab, I'm just on a mission to share this information with people. I mean, we even had people as young as in their 30s coming into cardiac rehab. And I remember really well this 38-year-old, and to me, he seemed like a kid. He just was so young, and he had a heart attack. And when I was looking through his records and reviewing all of his symptoms, one thing that really does not come up in the conventional medicine model is he had all kinds of gut issues. And I was asking him about his normal digestion and elimination. He shared with me that he had all kinds of issues with digestion. He was having a lot of issues with constipation, and so he'd been taking multiple things for gut health, for constipation, and like there was clearly a gut connection there with him and his heart attack. No one else was going to talk about that. No one else was going to address it. And it just makes me sad to think how many people they're going back to their doctor and they're just saying, "Well, you have bad genes." And even now we know that genes, like genetic expression can be influenced, that there's things we can do to turn the genes of disease and aging off and the genes of longevity on. And so, just saying you have bad genes, here's all your medication, good luck. It's just not right. So I want to just reach as many people as I can to help them understand there are these root cause foundational factors that you can do something about that don't require medication. And and you can turn a lot of these chronic issues around and eliminate them.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And are there any surprising foods or habits that people overlook but make a huge difference?
Oh my goodness, yes, and people don't wanna hear this. People really don't wanna hear this, but there are some common culprit foods. I will say that for myself and many of my counterparts and peers that work in the functional medicine space, we find that when people take gluten out of their diet, they oftentimes get a lot better. Sugar is another big one. So it's people don't want to hear it though. And sometimes people can take those things out for a little while, heal their gut, balance everything, and then slowly bring things back in certain forms, maybe in sourdough or fermented, or maybe in a sprouted form. But that's a big one. A lot of people get better when they remove those things. Some people need to remove a number of things to really allow their gut to heal, and so we do, full elimination diets and give people a lot of support for how to do that and get rid of a lot of things, allow the gut to heal, bring in a wide variety of plant foods so that the microbiome can be nourished. And then at some point, we start to kind of slowly bring back some of those triggering foods and really allow people to see in their own ecosystem what works and what doesn't work, because there's no one size fits all. We are all living in our own ecosystem. I think that's an important takeaway too, is like some things will work for some people but not for other people, and we have to do the work to figure that out for ourselves. And so the other thing that I think people don't realize, and this is something that is a big teaching point for me in my program, is our microbiome thrives on diversity. It needs a diversity and variety of plant-based foods, even animal foods. So when people have these very mononutrient diets where they just kind of eat the same thing day after day, they're missing a huge opportunity to improve the health of their microbiome and improve the diversity of the bacteria that live there, which is so important for our overall health. So the recommendation, and this is from top level scientists in the whole realm of like the microbiome, the recommendation is 30 to 35 different plant foods every week. So, and I have clients that, they'll show me, they'll send me pictures of what they're eating, and they'll be, meeting the general criteria of my metabolic reset program, but I'm seeing like one or two vegetables on their plate. And maybe in the course of a day, they get maybe 4 or 5 different fruit or vegetables. So that's a big teaching point for me. I'm like, you need to have at least 5 plant foods at every meal. And ideally, even more than that, so that you're able to meet that 30 to 35 different plant foods per week. So that's a surprising thing that I think a lot of people discover.
Mm-hmm. And it's so reassuring to know that there are tangible steps we can take, and that mood isn't just all in our head, but linked to real, actionable changes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If I could just take everybody that's dealing with anxiety and depression and like bring them to, to some location where all of their food is prepared and they can eat these like really beautiful meals with lots of fruits and vegetables, and taking out some of the trigger foods and just see how their mood changes, I mean, it would just be amazing. And, the reality is when people are dealing with anxiety and depression, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, here's, a total diet overhaul. Um, Go ahead and do this and good luck. Like that can be really hard because they're already feeling anxious. They're already feeling depressed. So now how do I do these major, diet overhauls? So that's what I like about being a coach is I can coach people through that process. I can help them. I can give them recipes. I can give them meal plans. I can talk about meal preparation and hacks to like convenience and efficiency hacks to make the whole process easier because it can be kind of daunting. And then there's, that whole um, identity evolution in a sense. It's there's our nervous system, our lizard brain wants to keep everything familiar and the same because that feels safe, even though the changes are going to ultimately make you feel better. The nervous system is still wired to want to keep us in that familiar place, even that familiar place of the thing we've been doing, even though it hasn't been serving us. So it's really working on addressing that and understanding, why our nervous system is wired that way and how do we still, make those changes and step into a new way of being and being sensitive to this little lizard brain that just wants to keep us safe. So there is work involved. It's like I tell people that do my program, it's simple, but it's not always easy. And that's why I'm here to help.
That's amazing. So, we hear a lot of buzz around probiotics and supplements. In your experience, where do they truly fit in and can we overdo it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I also really love this question because I feel like the supplement industry is really like they are really trying to capitalize on, this whole idea of like taking care of the microbiome and what does it mean to nourish the microbiome. And so, I mean, there are just thousands of companies trying to say like we have the thing that's going to fix your microbiome and people don't know where to turn. They don't know who to believe and who to listen to, and there's some just junk out there. And so being able to guide people toward supplement companies that are legit, that do the science, that are transparent. And I do have a few companies that I feel like are really good. They provide a great product and they're very transparent. So I do love to help people, but I really feel like we need to uh, really bring it back to food. And, our ancestors taught us so many things that we've just kind of brushed aside. And, with technology and all of this, like, oh, just take a pill for this, it's easier. But if we can get the fermented foods into our diet, if we can eat the kimchi and the sauerkraut and ferment things on our kitchen counters, it's just so much easier than I think people realize. Like I've made kimchi, I've made sauerkraut, like there's really nothing to it. And just so using food as medicine, using food as information for our bodies as it was meant to be. And then when we need a little more support, then getting those probiotics on board. Prebiotic supplements can also be, getting those fibrous foods and sometimes prebiotic supplements can be helpful. And I think it really comes down to case by case, when people just don't have the capacity to get these things in with whole foods, then we can talk supplements. And some people are dealing with other issues that are going on in their health. They may have like a histamine intolerance, and if that's going on, then they might not tolerate fermented foods. It might cause a histamine reaction in their body, and so we have to look for other ways to support their microbiome.
Makes sense. So, do you recommend food first approaches or are supplements sometimes essential?
Yeah, so that's just such a great question because I think it really comes down to case by case. I do highly recommend food first. However, I've had a number of people that I've worked with where their life is just kind of chaotic. And so they really struggle with getting everything, all of their needs met with food only. And so that's where I think that there are some fantastic supplements. And even like if they are doing a good job with food, depending on where their food is grown. I mean, if they're getting food that's grown in soil that's nutrient depleted, then they might not be getting all the nutrients that we think they're getting. So I think there is a really good place for supplementing because we just can't be sure that our foods are, do have those all those minerals and vitamins present. So the supplements are just a nice safety net to make sure that we're getting everything we need. I mean, my supplement cabinet is very full. I will admit, like I have lots of different things that I take because I just want to give myself that extra, little bit of security that all of my body's needs are being met. But I do like making my own yogurt and my own fermented foods because I have time. Does that answer your question?
Definitely. And that
Okay.
clears up so much confusion because let's be real, the supplement aisle can feel totally overwhelming.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, and I that's why I love helping people. Like when people come to me a lot of times I'll the first thing I'll do is tell me what your current diet habits are and tell me what your current supplement habits are. Let's just talk through what are you already doing? Where are you getting your supplements? What brand are you using? And so we can start with what are you already doing really well? What are the things that are great, that are high quality? What are the habits that you are doing that are working well for you? And then let's fill in the gaps.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, you live and breathe lifestyle medicine, trail running, healthy cooking, meditation. How have these practices amplified your own gut brain connection?
Oh, huge. Like, I'm convinced. I used to be a very anxious person. I was very socially anxious. I would be like, even just to be on a podcast, I would have been a wreck. And because I have really invested in balancing my nervous system, and I do that through meditation, but also nature. So getting out into nature on my trail runs and hugging trees and connecting to the earth, I think is a big part of what keeps me in a pretty balanced state. Also, breath work. I have a breath work coach who is amazing. She should actually be on your show. And her breath work has been really integral in my whole arsenal of things that I do to keep my brain healthy, to keep in a good nervous system state and prevent the anxiety. And then also, yeah, my gut health. I did a stool test on myself just to see like what's going on in my own microbiome. How balanced am I? And because of my diet, I think my microbiome looked pretty good. I had one little area of bacterial overgrowth, and I fixed that with essential oils. And so, yeah, I just think I'm a different person since I have discovered all this. Like I really have stepped into a different a different identity from like the old insecure person I used to be.
That's great. And what's one daily ritual you never skip because it keeps you grounded and thriving?
Getting outside. Getting outside. Our microbiome responds not just to what we eat, but it responds to the environments that we place ourselves in. So there are microbes in the air and in the soil and there are terpenes that are coming off of different plants and trees. So when we get outside and especially get into natural spaces, really trying to get into like parks or trails or different green spaces or coastal areas, wherever we can get to, we are exposing our microbiome to all of the the things that are present in those environments. And so we need to remember it's not just what we eat, it's where we find ourselves, the air that we're breathing, the soil that we're touching, the trees that we're hugging. All of that does also impact our microbiome. So for me, I never let a day pass without getting outside, ideally out onto the trails, but if I can't get out to the trails, at least I'm walking around my neighborhood and just trying to be outdoors, getting natural light. That's a big one for me.
It's so motivating to hear how these habits really stack up and create a ripple effect through your whole life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm. So, Angie, thank you for guiding us through this vital, often overlooked connection between our gut and mind. And to everyone listening, remember, healing is inside out. Your mood, your energy, your joy, they all start with how you nourish and care for yourself. Stay curious, stay vibrant, and as always, keep putting mind over matter.